Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the ranking member for having this important hearing today, an important moment of bipartisanship and the understanding that the FISA application has gone horribly wrong. It is our responsibility to do something about it. So I thank all of the witnesses for being here today, for your expertise and your historical understanding of where we are and the grave moment that we're in. The Foreign Intelligence Act, FISA, the legislative branch, we're entrusted with making the laws of the United States. It's our job to decide what the rules should be, delineating fair from unfair, safe from unsafe. Sometimes these decisions are straightforward and easily guided by the Constitution and common sense. Other times the decisions are more difficult. It feels like we're in one of those places now with a clear-cut understanding that the abuses of the FISA applications and queries are unacceptable. We know we have a responsibility, as do the agencies, to protect our national security, to protect us against crime anytime we can possibly do it. But we must always protect civil liberties, people's rights to privacy, our constitutional rights. Ms. Goitein, I was interested in your very eloquent history of what's going on here and what has happened. We do need to review the FISA process. What are the most, if you had maybe 3 areas of reform, what would be the most important? I know it's denser than that, but what would be the most 3 top areas of reform?
I've been trying to narrow it down a little bit because I know that that's helpful. It's difficult. There's a lot that needs to be done, but I think I can at least narrow it to 3 buckets. And the first bucket is ensuring that Section 02 works as intended, and that means that it's not a domestic spying tool. For that, we need to have a warrant requirement or a requirement of a FISA Title I order before the government conducts U.S. person queries of Section 702 data. Part of the Section 702 reform also has to be narrowing the scope of permissible surveillance so that the government is not allowed to conduct surveillance of foreign targets who do not reasonably pose any threat to the United States or have any information about a threat to the United States. That is actually a vicarious protection for Americans' privacy, because the larger the scope of permissible foreign targets, the greater the volume of incidental collection of Americans' communications. So that's the Section 702 bucket. Then I would say that Congress needs to complete the modernization of FISA by ensuring that Americans' communications and Fourth Amendment protected information are protected from warrantless surveillance regardless of where in the world the government obtains that information. And then finally, I would say that the Congress has to close the data broker loophole. And while we were on break, the House passed by voice vote a bipartisan amendment co-sponsored by Representatives Jacobs and Davidson, and with a long bipartisan list of co-sponsors, which I'm not going to list because I'm afraid I'll forget someone by accident. But the House passed an amendment that would prohibit the Department of Defense from buying its way around the Fourth Amendment and obtaining Americans' Fourth Amendment protected information by buying it from data brokers. That is proof of concept. Congress can do this, and Congress now needs to do that for all federal agencies.
That's very helpful. Mr. Kiko, thank you too for your testimony and your work on this. We talked about whether to sunset and allow it to expire, Section 702, or to reform it, as we just had some conversation around that. What are the consequences of allowing 702 to simply expire later this year?
Well, I think allowing it to expire, you're turning over the keys to the to Article 2, to the executive branch. And we've had enough experience to know that even when they have a statute, there's ways to weasel around it. And I just would be very, I mean, Article 1 is the Congress. They're the ones that establish the law. And we're going to have to, you know, my experience would be to draft something, but you're going to have close oversight. You're going to have to bring the administration to heel, you know, for the consequences of abuse, but also we don't have to have it read as broadly as it is for data purchases and for all this other stuff that they've been somehow figured out to have jurisdiction over. So if you could narrow that and just, but really have tight oversight and also consequences for people and agencies that don't follow what the law is.
I thank you both. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.